So I have seen a lot of things today, and usually the good things, but also the scary things, are reserved for the end. So we are entering now a scary area, which is cybersecurity. I've been CIO in several big hospitals back in the Netherlands, and I woke up many times in the middle of the night. What's going on? I got phone calls in the middle of the night. There is something wrong. And the first thing that pops in your head, oh, there's an attack. I'm not even thinking about a malfunction of a server. My first thought is, there's an attack. If I see things in the news of the light or power is out for quite some time in New York or wherever, my first thought is, there's an attack. And imagine that those infrastructures all digitized. And everything, my good friend, I'm double alumnus of the Singularity University, and I worked with Mark Goodman. He is the super guru in cyber crimes. And Mark always said, everything that can be digitized will be digitized. And everything that is digitized will be hacked. That's where we are at the moment. So, we have an amazing panel here, and we are going to challenge you as well. Can you put up my slides for that? And the other one, the questions. Because we have Ani, and I forgot his name again, and No Man. Ani is in digital marketing and is doing digital marketing for a lot of companies, including banks. And one of the things in our digital marketing and branding is focusing on cyber security as well. Ani, can you come up?
Sure.
Here? And Norman is CIOO, Chief Information and Operational Officer at Noorbank, and his roots are also in cybersecurity and, let's say, adjacent areas. So while they are here and we are putting up the slides, the next please. Mark, if we are talking about cybersecurity, I will give you a couple of simple things and a couple of questions that Mark taught me. Who of you is switching off their phones when you are going to bed? Two people.
They're good people.
Those people who leave the phone on, are you still on Wi-Fi? People who are going to bed and do have a laptop, are you switching off your laptop? You do. Those laptops are still connected to Wi-Fi. If there is one vulnerable point, access point, it is Wi-Fi. So please keep them on, but don't ask yourself, hey, what's going on? Something is not working as it should be. Probably someone took advantage of your weak Wi-Fi. So who is using VPNs? Come on, guys. I'm shocked now. You are in banking and you are not using VPN.
We don't declare officially, all right? So you can't ask this question openly on the floor.
And the last question, and then we are going into the real stuff. Who is updating all the time their applications? Also on your laptop, also on your iOS, also on Windows. Most of those things are to protect you. So if there is a thing where you have to update Word, please do so. There are a lot of security stacks in there. Right, here is my panel. Are you?
Yes. I'm
Okay.
We have
You have it. Perfect. Because what I'm going to ask the panel here to start with, and then we are, in the meantime, you are looking at those slides and pick a question that you want to talk about, and then we ask the panel to have a discussion about it. Who are you?
Okay.
And what is your top one, let's say, aspect of cybersecurity?
Right. So my name is Ani, as you all know. I run a digital marketing agency. We work with a lot of banks, and I have had quite a bit of banking experience before I started my own company. So I've come across various scenarios where we worked with situations where we had a very reactive approach to situations where there were attacks on the bank's systems. So it's always been very reactive, and one of my biggest agendas or topics I want to highlight is it shouldn't be reactive, it has to be proactive. So there's certain areas that the banks do look after, obviously from a security point of view, but as things change and as new trends emerge, it's very important to be proactive, and that's my point that I would like to make.
Yeah, so obviously, Naman, technologist in the industry for 24 years now. I think, Paul, your question on, I think you started well, you know, what keeps you awake in night? There used to be days when we as technologists, we as CIOs used to worry about our production data centers are running healthy, no problems, our project's going to be delivered on time. Those were the worries for us. But lately, with this digital disruption, the thing which keeps me worried always is the data. How I am making sure that I am protecting my customer and my bank's data in the best possible manner. That's the main focal point for us. That's what keeps us as CIOs always on our toes.
Okay, very clear. So here are. So here are a couple of things related to that. So I picked just the first left corner up. Are emerging fraud trends on your radar? And let's start with you, Noman.
Yeah.
Related to data protection. What kind of trends do we see in how to protect that? And what kind of trends do we see in the attacks on that?
So I think before I get you to the how, I'll also probably talk about this strange vicious cycle we are in right now. You know, so we as bankers, somebody talked about agility, agile. We had amazing focus on agility, cost optimization, mobility, digitalization, right? So these are the themes we are busy, we are delivering solutions around these. And why do I say it's a vicious cycle is on the back of these things, these all initiatives we are delivering are where we are opening up the doors for frauds as well. For example, when we talk about mobility, right now in my pocket, the device I carry has my full bank, right? So I have access to my bank's network, my systems. So that's where my data is right now. My staff, they want bring your own devices type of technologies, right? So mobility opens up fraud trends. Cost optimization. What does it mean that as banks, our focus is on cost optimization. We have gone into cloud. We are doing offshoring and right shoring of our processes to third parties. We actually hand over our assets, our IP, our processes to third parties. And then we open up the fraud doors there. So the trends, Paul, what we are looking at is from banking point of view, and my colleagues on the floor in the hall here can add, 3 areas. One is the insider fraud. This is within the bank, the partners, the colleagues, the employees, the inside agents, frauds which we see, that's on the rise. That's number one. Number two is the social identity theft. As banks, we see that, and I'm going to share very quick, interesting data with you. So we did a survey. As a bank, we did a survey with our customers, and the question was, we are about to launch new banking digital platform, right? And we said, you know what, we want to make sure it's secure. So we did a survey and we asked our customers one question only, and we said, just tell us in last 3-4 years, did you ever get had your identity theft on your email, on your phone, or your SIM in last 3 or 4 years? Every third customer, the answer was yes to the bank. And that was a clear indication to us that where do we stand and how do we have to make sure that we are protecting whatever solutions we are putting in place. That's the identity theft, the second one. The third one is the cloud computing there, by the way. Yeah.
Okay. So we will come back to the cloud computing as well. So what kind of things are you doing in your branding, marketing, digital marketing with your customers related to cybersecurity? What is your, let's say, in terms of trends that you see in that direction? What are you doing and how are you protecting your clients?
Right. So there are two very important aspects to this. One is basically education of the customers, to constantly educate your customers about what's happening. Also, I mean, I want to bring out a very interesting campaign that has recently been launched by Emirates NBD, which is "It wasn't me." Hashtag it wasn't me. I don't know how many of you have seen it. There are billboards also out there. So those are the kind of campaigns that drive awareness amongst the customers. And this campaign of Emirates NBD, to be in particular, is in collaboration with Dubai Police and Dubai government. So creating campaigns and driving awareness amongst consumers also brings back the trust. And I think that's something which everybody pointed out today, that that's one of the very important factors as we move towards a digital, a completely digital and automated environment. And trust in with the banks is something very, very important. And how do brands constantly communicate and also educate their customers to avoid these phishing attacks and different kinds of data theft, activities that happen in the market. So that's point number one. Point number two is what is very important from a digital marketing point of view is you got to have, as a bank, you got to have deeper insights and a holistic view of your customers' data. So basically, if you have a full view of how your customer has a relationship with you and what are the possible points from where the data leakage can happen, you can then tailor your messages or communication with your customers to educate them and drive awareness and preempt certain messages which can help them.
And where are those leakages in general? What do you see a certain trend?
So
is that mobile device what no one was talking about?
Yes, and then social media is, I think, very, very important because people share every single activity, what they do, where they shop, where they dine, what are they doing. All that information is shared publicly on social media. And I think there was a very interesting campaign some time back that Dubai Police had done around that to educate people that your information is in public. So you need to be very, very careful as to what you mention or what you talk about on social media, because there are people who are following you, observing what you're doing, and that leads them to attack your financial data as well.
Yeah, and also that people, if they are following you, they probably know that you are on vacation somewhere in the world and your house is empty.
Sure.
So those kind of simple little things, it's not only the cybersecurity and cybercrime, but also using the digital world, you leave a lot of information about yourself so that you can be attacked in a different way. So you have seen the questions. Do you have a preference for a question that you want to talk about? Can we put them up again? Can we put up the slides? So one of the things I will start with that, and then once we have them, and please leave them on so that the audience can see them. There they are. Okay. So you have seen this. That's the top left. This one. You go back. Any preference? Otherwise I will proceed with... No one? Okay. What I find really, really scary is the adversarial neural networks and KYC. What does that mean? So we are the point that we want to digitize everything, right? We don't need to see a client coming up to our office to verify himself. No, we want to do that all digital. So we send in our picture and headshot and our passport and our whatever, you know, that you need for that. And also a bill for you, where you, for your salary or whatever, so that you have a proof of address. Well, these adversarial neural networks are so good in making fake faces, in making fake addresses, in making fake whatever. And if we just pump that into the digital environment of a bank, and also if we do have the open banking that people like so much, what's going to happen with that? What is going to happen with that? There is no proof of me and someone from the bank. It's only digital, because that is what we want. Yeah, we like to have things as easy as possible. So what is your answer to that?
So I think my take, Paul, would be, and let's involve the audience as well here. Sorry, you want to add something? Yeah, no, so I was saying, see, the technology maturity is continuing to evolve and will continue to evolve, right? The risk which you talked about is absolutely valid risk. And as we speak, there are technologies which are also trying to protect that sort of a fraud as well. I think the point is, in this room, if you ask who had last visited a physical branch in the last 3, 4, 5 months, probably the answer would be none of them, which means it's a real fact that people would want digital channels to be the mean of service and acquisition and onboarding and being in interaction with the bank. So technology is continuing to evolve. What we need to do is to monetize the data in the right way. As Annie mentioned, that we are sitting, as banks also, we are sitting on top of huge amount of data. What we are lacking right now, and I must accept that on behalf of the banking industry here, is that I don't think we are at that level of maturity right now where we are really monetizing and leveraging the power of data what we have with us. Forget the social data which is available out there. So if we are, and then somebody talked about the blockchain, you talked about the neural network technology here. So my take is that fraud risk is not going to stop us from doing the innovation and making it convenient for our customers. What we need to do is to package it with detective and more preventive controls, so we can continue to protect our customers. That's my 2 bits to it.
Yes.
And you, Ani?
Yes, so one point that I would like to add over here is it's very important for us to also understand that as banks individually we would have access to a certain amount of data, but then when banks come together, the power of collaboration makes it even more robust. I think, and that is the need in the market, where banks come together and create digital products and deliver those products in the market, because then there is a centralization of data, and then it makes it more robust and secure.
Perfect. I love that. And I will give an example later. While I'm walking to you, no, okay.
Yes, please.
Go. No, go.
Yeah, I have been a banker as well since last 43 years. So I would like to share my observation and my thoughts. May or may not be right, or you may not agree with that. It was said that anything which can be digitized will be hacked or can be hacked. And anything, be it your face recognition data, your fingerprint recognition data, it can be hacked and it can be skimmed as well. So here is a need to change the basic validation process. What they did at the when the cards, plastic cards were skimmed, they created the process of tokenization. Because before the tokenization, every transaction used to have the full identification of the card. So what they did, that they removed the card number or the identification of the card from every transaction. They used the tokens instead, and they went up to the extent that every transaction will have a different token of the card, not even the same token. Same way, the personal identification method can be changed, because I don't believe that the physical presence is the answer to a digital skimming, because I have seen the old James Bond movies. Your finger can be mimicked by another human by putting a layer on your finger. And James Bond movies have shown that you can change your face actually. No, I'm just I have a suggestion to the technologists, and I'm also being a technologist. I want to correct the understanding that the digitization has not increased the threat of ID theft. This is not true, because even if you are physically visiting the branch, somebody in your disguise of face or in your finger can visit the branch and mimic you. So that skimming or the theft of the identification is not increased because of the digitization. So if we correct the understanding, then we will be able to find the right solution around it. And I gave the example of the card skimming was addressed not by making the card this chip-based card or EMV. That did not solve the problem. But what is probably solving the problem, or at least minimizing the problem, is the tokenization. So the same way, we need to find the way to change the way we are verifying the identification of the person, even if the person is visiting physically. So that's the answer to the ID theft, actually.
I agree.
Yeah. So I was just thinking of an experiment from MIT. They had pictures of a cat, and was also with identification experiment, and they just changed a couple of pixels. And then they run it again through an AI system, and that AI system said, well, oh, there's guacamole. All right, any questions? Poona.
My question is for Norman. Banks have been impervious to the decentralization of IT systems to a third-party vendor. So do you think that the cyber attacks which have been happening recently, are this because of the decentralization of the IT systems at the banks?
So from this side of the fence, we are seeing the contribution of, as I said before, we may call it decentralization, we may call it right shoring, we may call it offshoring of our processes and services to third parties, but surely what we are seeing is it's contributing significantly in the fraud and the security threat posture for the banks. And if I may share the example of my previous organization, so and now you may see even generally in the industry, you will see a trend where banks are now evaluating and re-evaluating the roles which they had offshored to third parties or decentralized, and now they are saying, hey, you know what, there are some sensitive roles which we need to take back, because those are the ones behind which there's a huge amount of data sitting. So the short answer, yes. The long answer is there is a review going on. Banks are now stepping back, and I think they are now looking at their own processes and operating models again. That's happening.
Any things what you want to add to that?
I think he's given the answer very well.
So the other thing, and that is the last question that I would like to address, and that is the whole thing around AI machine learning in the space of cybersecurity. And as machine learning, we know that machine learning learns from data. And what the machines are learning is not always clear what they are learning. And especially if the machines are connecting to each other, then we are losing what they are learning. And of course, the smartest people are not working for you, unfortunately. So they are probably outside and try to attack you using machine learning as well. So machine learning is now learning from machine learning from the counterparty. So what will be the role of human beings in this, I would say, symmetric escalation of cybercrime?
I think one of the most important things here would be education. I would emphasize that again. Where to share for the consumers, for the customers. So basically, to understand what is it that you can share, what is that you can't share into the public domain, having the awareness about it, and being educated that these are the kind of potential attacks that can happen without scaring them. Obviously, banks are very cautious about that as well. From a marketing standpoint, we were like very, very cautious that we don't want to talk about something that scares or puts off our customers and they lose trust in the bank. But at the same time, there has to be a constant education around this to tell, these are things that you can share, these are things you can't, and this is how you need to, look at from a security or individual data security point of view.
So what you actually are saying is the responsibility is at the end point, which is in this case the customer, and he needs to know what.
Yes, because the customer gives the data with their own consent.
Yeah.
So it's very important that the bank educates the customer about this, because the right of sharing the information lies with the customer. So it becomes responsibility of the bank to constantly educate the customer that you are opening doors to cybercrime.
I think I may add to what Annie's saying. For sure, yes, we need to create that awareness among customer community. But at the same time, I'll also again emphasize that there has to be huge focus on inside the organization in terms of, so for example, now the trends are that we are deploying solutions in our own banks, in banking industry, to observe the patterns and behaviors of employees. So we are creating patterns, we are baselining the patterns, and what I mean by that is over 6 months.
And do they know that? Do they know that you are doing that?
They don't know that. They don't know that. However, the point is that with changing dynamics, changing postures, changing banking companies' strategies, you will see employees' behaviors changing. Their way of utilizing data is changing. So we preempt what's going to go wrong before customer is impacted, and put the right control in place right within the organization. So you're right, Annie is right that yes, we need to make sure that customers are aware. At the same time, internal to the organization, we have to put some very strong controls in place. The JML process is another important aspect, which the joining, mover and lever process within the organizations, how we hire people, how we train them, how do we, that's really, really important.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we can talk forever about this, I believe, and it's very serious discussions that we need to have. And this is all what we did up to now, and I deliberately did that in that direction, is that what we can think of now, that is our linear projection. If we factor in here quantum computing, able to crack those nice hashtags in the blockchain, what will happen then? And in 2 years, those machines are on the market. The only thing probably that can help us to do that, if encryption programs encrypt themselves. Think about it. Encryption programs encrypt themselves. That is probably the only solution that quantum computing cannot deal with yet. As I said, I can talk forever about it, and my panel, I think also, it was a very, I think, a serious discussion that we have, really basic things that we were addressing and that we have to address, and this has to be on your agenda every day, and not only in your work, but also at home. Talk to your children about and teach them how to behave in this age in terms of cybersecurity. They are vulnerable. If you give them as parents a smartwatch or you give them a smartphone, please do that. They are on the hook of criminals because those are the most vulnerable people, and through them they find you. Annie, Norman,
Thank
it
you,
was a
Paul.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.